I read every single Invincible comic and it changed my life. I cannot express the level of fun and anguish I had on this journey. The Invincible comics is at times weirdly paced. It doesn't always have the greatest character writing, and some stuff just straight up doesn't make sense. What is that? I read the entire comics and I have no fucking idea what that is. However, it is also one of the greatest pieces of fiction ever written. But first, come here. Come over here. Yeah. There are spoilers in this video. I'm gonna spoil shit in the comics. So from this point on, I'm not gonna apologize for any of the shit I ruin. Okay? Get out of here, rascal. Little cutie. Now, there are many individuals out there that have both read and finished the comic book series. Many of them can probably articulate why they like the series far better than I can. Seriously, I have a hard time reading my own fucking script. So what sets my little old opinion apart? Why would anyone care what I have to say? Tough but fair question. Well, not only did I like the Invincible comic book, but I don't really like comic books. Like at all. I know I have the face and intellect of someone who would only enjoy a book if it has pictures in it. A bonus if I get to color them in myself. But it's true, I have simply never liked comic books. Earlier, I was talking to my very real wife, and I was telling her, I don't know, I just think I don't like comic books. And she said, you know I'm not real, right? This is not for a lack of trying either. I have picked up several different kinds of comic books over the years, trying to figure out what makes this form of art so engaging. I actually just read Berserker, which is a comic book written by Keanu Reeves. And if it wasn't written by God's messenger himself, I would be saying far harsher things about the series right now. Before I read Invincible, to be honest, there was only really one other comic book I enjoyed reading, and that was Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead. Honestly, with the newfound success of the Invincible animated series, there's a good chance we might get an animated adaptation of The Walking Dead.
You know, if they made an animated series, it would be a great opportunity for fans to see a far more faithful adaptation of Kirkman's work, especially when you consider...
Let's send you back to bed, okay, buddy?
Go back to bed? I don't want to go back to...
I am so sorry. I left the cage unlocked. And I only ended up reading the Walking Dead comics because I like the show so much. As many of you can probably tell, that pattern will emerge later. All of my friends are comic book junkies, and I often felt like an outsider when they would talk so highly of these comic books that they read, and they would ask me to read them, and I would, and I just didn't like them. I tried reading the heavy hitters. I tried reading Spider-Man comics, Batman comics, even an Aquaman comic book at one point. That one I am ashamed of. I just figured that this form of art was destined to rub me the wrong way, like pottery. But then I saw this little series on Amazon Prime, and it was based off a comic book that Robert Kirkman had also written. Yeah, I'll check it out. Wow, this kind of feels like a happy coming-of-age story, a somewhat nostalgic premise, and honestly, I kind of have to say I really like the art style here and oh my god, what the fuck is happening? When I tell you the ending to the first episode rocked my shit, I mean it. I was instantly hooked. My eyeballs were glued to the rest of the season. Then an issue arose. You see, the more I like a show, the farther my patience plummets. We had to wait 2 fucking years to get season 2. And when we finally got that sweet nectar that is that is Invincible, there was a mid-season break for an 8-episode season. This caused me to be in literal pain. And if the animators aren't going to finish the show, then I will, by reading all of the comics and spoiling everything for myself. By the way, just so no one's confused, season 2 kind of fucked. It absolutely rocked ass and dick. I loved it. It just took a while. And I'm a little baby man. Okay, and I wanted it now. I wanted it now. So far, season 3 is fucking awesome. And I'm sorry I made a joke about how long animation takes.
Oh, yeah.
This little guy here, yeah, he's just dancing. Just doesn't, not doing anything else. Yeah, that took me 4 days. So I get it, guys. Shut the fuck up. So I bought the first compendium, then the second, then the third. all for a measly 180 what the fuck dollars later. This is not a cheap hobby to get into, I must say. Despite that, it was worth every penny. I have never been one to not be able to put a book down. In fact, I find it quite easy to put a book down. Even easier to never pick up the fucking thing in the first place. But for the first time in my life, I was losing sleep because all I wanted to do was keep reading. Fuck, this is so good. This is just such a good comic. That little voice in my head that said just one more page only accelerated the farther down I got in each compendium. Now look, this video is mainly just a stream of consciousness, right? There's no real structure to it. I'm just kind of vomiting at you and you're gonna eat it up like soup. You little fucking pig. There's gonna be a ton of shit that I just don't mention because I don't know if you've seen how thick these things are. I can't cover everything. So if I omit a lot of important shit, I'm sorry. I really only want to talk about like a few key moments in the comics. We start our journey with good old Mark violently killing a man. Look at this fucking dweeb. His father, Omni-Man, is a highly acclaimed superhero that everyone views as essentially Superman. And this sets the stage for a simultaneously familiar and unique premise. Right off the bat, I noticed that familiar vibe that the show had. It definitely starts off as a kind of campy, go-lucky, classic run-of-the-mill superhero show. It lulls you into a state of comfort because... it gets so fucking dark. And since I already watched the show, I knew what was coming. I knew that big twist. I knew that fucking violent escapade was right around the corner. Except it wasn't right around the corner. In fact, it kind of took a while for it to even happen. This actually kind of highlights one of Robert Kirkman's biggest flaws, I think personally, as a writer, and that's development time. He kind of starts his stories off somewhat slow and a little aimless. In fact, there was an interview where he talked about how one of his key motivators for writing The Walking Dead was just the thought of, hey, what if a zombie movie never ended? So it's not really a rock-solid premise to catapult off of. Don't get me wrong, the early issues absolutely have their moments. They're not without merit, sure, but it's clear that his confidence and talent as a writer strengthens the longer he writes. Like, for the first compendium, my issue was pacing. But compendium 2 and 3, oh my god. With the exception of a few big plot holes and sometimes characters doing things that I don't think really make sense, the shit's fucking perfect. So at the beginning, I wasn't really sure I was going to like this comic. Add it to the list of comic books I just have not liked. The list isn't that big. I think I'm being a drama queen. But towards the later half of the compendium, I actually started to feel... Again, the first half, sure, it was slow. While I was reading it, it did not matter because I was getting ready for that fight. Omni-Man versus the Guardians of the Globe. I wanted to see the illustration that the artist depicted. And when it arrived, it kind of fucking sucked. Yeah, it was almost just solely for shock value. It just felt like it was like a slasher panel the whole time. You're like, oh, who's doing this? And then it's revealed that it's Omni-Man. And he didn't even look like he was using an ounce of effort to beat these fuckers. Not only was it just purely shock value, but it didn't really look that good. I mean, is every big fight in the series just going to kind of look choppy and underwhelming? No, the fuck it isn't. We will get to this masterpiece later, I promise you. Yeah, I mean, it just didn't seem like he knew how to pace these first 12 issues, and I think that's on full display when you watch the show, because in Season 1 and Season 2, they sort of rearranged a ton of events to kind of fix that pacing issue. But honestly, the main reason I stuck around, and the main reason I kept reading, was Mark Grayson himself. I really liked this character, and I enjoyed seeing this kid grapple with this newfound responsibility. Quite the unique concept, I know, but I'm a sucker for the classics. We see how Mark develops his ideologies and moral code, and throughout the series, his psyche start to break down. Every time he gets the absolute piss dog beaten out of him, he changes just a little bit. I mean, he gets the fucking shit beaten out of him by Sparky Boy, his dad, ooh, too soon, some man lion, Bet we'll never see him again. A talking dinosaur? No, that's not a joke. And he might be my favorite character in the entire comic book series. And a plethora of other Viltrumites. And this is honestly where the story's main theme peaks into frame, and that is resilience. Okay, I know it's not a very intricate take on the series, but it's true. Mark is constantly hit with L after L, either physical or emotional. Yet, even though he might get a little more rugged and brutal on the exterior, Mark Grayson always ends up doing what he thinks is the right thing to do. And as I explained, he's gotten the shit kicked out of him by all these characters. But you have seen nothing yet. There are some brutal fights in this comic book. And that kind of leads into another issue I have with the comic book. Well, I couldn't actually decide if I liked it or disliked it. There are many comic book panels where characters get fucking decimated, and yet they survive. They should be fucking dead. A reason I do like this is because it allows Robert Kirkman to not hold back when illustrating these vicious fights, and you get to see some cool ass shit, and I'm a sucker for gore. I would be lying if I didn't say these were amazingly drawn panels, but I feel like, one, it takes away from the gravity of when a character actually does die, because when they die, I kind of feel nothing at first, because I don't trust that they're actually dead. It isn't until like 50 issues later where I'm like, oh shit, they're not coming back. They're dead. I mean, this dude was fucking atomized. I don't want to talk about it. That actually was a sad death. And two, there are some deaths where, based on everything we've seen, when they die, I walk away thinking, really? That killed you? Earlier, you had your jaw removed and your arm taken off. Now look, people, I have lizard brain. So when things smash into each other and go bang, I'm in my happy place. I'm not ashamed to admit that. So sure, I have some gripes with the way certain deaths are handled. But I fucking love this. Yeah, I think it's worth it. I wouldn't change a thing. But look, crazy talented artists that depict really amazing fights can only go so far. Even for me. Hard to believe, I know. What honestly kept me going, I like the characters, I like the art design, but honestly, it was just the raw dialogue. Characters in this comic book talk like real people, and they have really engaging conversations. Sometimes difficult ones too, when two characters with polar opposite ideologies have to come to some kind of understanding. Now sure, sometimes it ends in a fight, other times it doesn't. And there's always a part of you that kind of roots for them to kind of come to a common ground. And I think that requires a lot of strong talent from the writer. For two characters to go head to head, and it's a superhero comic book, but I deep down want them to end up on the same side without having to come blow for blow. You did something awesome. And look, I have to talk about this again. The art design is fucking flawless. It is just beautiful. I mean, the violence and gore is super gritty, but the character designs are iconic and the silhouettes are instantly recognizable. It's awesome. Sometimes babies look... Ugh. But for the most part, every artist that worked on this comic book, and forgive me, I cannot remember all of their names, but every different art style was a welcome one. The artists really know how to convey impact and momentum when two heavy-hitting characters fight each other. In fact, there are two fights in particular that I'm thinking of right now that are forever burned into my retinas. I think all the comic book readers would agree with me here. The first one is when Conquest, a battle-hardened Viltrumite, comes to Earth. He was told that if Mark Grayson does not join their side and enslave planet Earth, he was to kill him and anyone that stood in his way of conquering that planet. His arrival, which I will stand by, Worm, was amazing. He made me nervous before he even threw a punch. So imagine how I felt when he threw a punch. I'm going to be honest here for a second, the only reason I wanted to make this video was because of this one fight. And I hope to God we see it this season. Invincible Season 3, this fight has to be great. It has to be. You have to kidnap some MAPPA animators or something. Just get it done. When these two clash and they are hurtling through the city, you can tell that Conquest is holding back. He is just having fun with Mark. Now Mark gets a few pretty good solid hits in himself. You can tell that his training has prepared him for this fight. But eventually, Conquest just overpowers the poor kid, And you can tell that this playing field is not level. And even after that, he decimates poor Eve. Oh, Mark doesn't like that. Now, I've seen enough anime to know that when the main character gets angry, it is over for the villain. Oh, he's still getting fucked up. He's just getting fucked up. And if it weren't for Eve, everyone would be dead, because Conquest is a madman who probably would have just killed the entire planet. The other fight comes way later down the line. So for anyone interested in reading the comics, unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait a minute. But trust me, it's worth it. And that is Battle Beast versus Thrag. Battle Beast is a man lion who exudes all the aura. He's feared among the galaxy as one of the strongest warriors, and Thrag is the leader of the Viltrumites. For perspective, the Viltrumites, anytime they show up, shit gets fucked up. So yeah, this fight also kind of fucked. And it lasted 20 issues or something, their fight, just in between different storylines, until it inevitably ends with Thrag finally overcoming and killing Battle Beast and turning his skin into a fucking coat. Oh my god, that's hard. Now look, while the emotional aspects of the comic were impactful and the art and fights were amazing, and I truly had an awesome time reading these comics, I really didn't like the ending. Not the specific ending per se, in fact that last panel was actually quite sweet and touching. It was the fact that, man, it felt really rushed. I respect that Robert Kirkman was trying to wrap everything up with a bow and being like, yep, no room for a spin-off, I'm not continuing it, this is over. I've done here what I wanted to do, I'm moving on to other projects. I respect that. But we covered 700 years in 2 comics or something. I don't know the issue numbers. I read the big blocks. I would have just liked to see 100 more issues depicting these events within the 500 years. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. But damn it, Robert Kirkman, you left me wanting more. Not many artists get to achieve that level of satisfaction. This was awesome. I love this comic book. And quite like how the comic book ended, this video will end rather abruptly.